First up this week, I want to start out by offering a massive, heartfelt thank you to Luke over at Wartime Stories. He was good enough to share our trailer without me having to beg him to do it. And as a result of that, he's massively increased our following in a really short space of time. If you haven't already discovered Wartime Stories, then you really are missing a trick. The depth that Luke goes into for the stories he covers over there completely puts me to shame. And a lot of the subjects he chooses are well outside of the mainstream. Some of the Vietnam stories and the American Civil War stories that he's done over there, I'd never heard of. So I really would recommend that you go over there and you subscribe. In the words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, do it now. Luke loves a good accent, bless him. Because the subscriber numbers and the viewing hours are starting to tick up over here, it looks like we'll be monetizing quite shortly. As a result of that, I've made the decision that any money we make, I will pay 10% of it towards veterans charities, both in Europe and the US. Most of the stories that I write are based on real life exploits for the men and women who fought to secure the future we've got now. So it seems only fair that we try and pay something back to that. So if you like the channel, please tell people about it, subscribe and share it. And if we make any money, we can pay some of it back to veterans and their families. Okay, so if you've watched this week's episode, you might be asking yourself, why are we in a Belgian forest fighting a Native American cryptid? Well, in essence, each of the episodes that I write starts out with the monster first. And once I've got the monster, I then try and look through World War II and figure out where I can put it, which won't be completely ridiculous. Now, I have researched a lot of cryptids when I've been writing for bedtime stories, and the Native American ones have always been the most popular. It seems like each tribe has their own supernatural boogeyman, some sort of curse or some sort of monster that would happen when somebody in the tribe did something wrong. They're all scary, Sasquatches, skinwalkers and dogmen, but the Wendigo is far and away the complete bastard of the bunch. It can throw its voice, it's like a self-replicating virus, and it's bloody terrifying to look at. Now, when Rich asked Mikey to draw it for bedtime stories, Mikey went ahead and completely owned it. And that's what I asked Sean to do when he designed it for this channel. And you know what? That's exactly what he did. As soon as I saw the rough drafts that he'd done, I completely fell in love with them. My only stipulation was that wherever possible, we try and incorporate as much World War II uniform or gear with the Wendigos, just to try and keep it in the setting we were using. Obviously, I had to take a couple of liberties with the legend, but that's not too difficult when the material you're working with is centuries old and there's little scientific fact to back it up. I hope you guys like our Wendigo. I'm fairly happy that what we've created is going to keep people up at night, and that was the goal with it. All the characters this time round are completely fictional, including Corporal Johnny Greywolf, but the role that Native Americans played in World War II is a subject that is largely overlooked. The role of the Navajo tribe and the Code Talker project is fairly well known, but that is a relatively small part of their service. There were over 23,000 American Indians fought in the US Army during World War II. There were a further 2,000 in the Navy, and alongside them, several hundred Native American women enlisted as nurses. One of the interesting things that I did know is that they didn't serve in segregation units. A lot of African American and Japanese American troops who joined up were segregated into their own teams, but Native Americans were classed as white on the draft and were incorporated into general units. Whilst the soldiers I used are fictional, the unit they belong to is not. The true story of the 551st is as sad as the narrative that I crafted, if not sadder. Whenever I write a script and submit it to Sean for the art, I tend to sit back for 5 minutes to see if he can spot the influences behind it. And good as gold, when I sent him this one, I got a message back straight away saying, "Oh, I love Band of Brothers too." And he's right. The 2 episodes of Band of Brothers set during the Ardennes were easily the best in the series, and they influenced my writing and Sean's visuals. But Easy Company story's been told enough already, so I had to go and try and find another group of paratroopers to use for Malediction. The 551st was formed in October of 1942, and they trained at Fort Benning in Georgia. Their first allocated mission was to attack the island of Martinique where U-boats were using it to refuel and resupply, but that operation was scrubbed before they went. They had a brief spell in Italy, and then they were redeployed to France. Initially, the battalion didn't see much in the way of action. It was assigned and then reassigned around larger units, and then suddenly, with the Battle of the Bulge, they were thrown directly into hell. They deployed to the front line on the 21st of December 1944, and 2 weeks later, roughly a quarter of them were still standing. On the morning of 7th January 1945, the remainder were ordered to attack the village of, and pardon the pronunciation, Rochenlimval. That was being defended by German troops backed up by a regiment of 88mm artillery guns. The American requests for an artillery barrage of their own were refused, and they attacked with little more than M1 Garand rifles and a bit of mortar support. The Germans, predictably, had ranged the area well in advance. They knew the Americans were coming. Heavy snow on the ground made going hard for the paratroopers. They did take the objective successfully, but less than 100 were still standing at the end of it. There was no effort to resupply them, and the survivors were incorporated into the 82nd Airborne. The battalion motto is particularly memorable. It was coined by a phrase that their commanding officer would use, Lieutenant Commander Woodjörg, and essentially he would just tell them repeatedly to get off your ass. So that became the battalion motto, Goya, get off your ass. Sadly, Jörg was amongst the men that fell at Rochenlimval, didn't survive the Battle of the Bulge. I just wanted to briefly say thank you for all your feedback and support so far. The main criticism, in addition to some of the subtitles, has been the audio. I've done my best to improve it this week. If it hasn't worked, let me know and I'll see if I can improve it further. Moving forward, as it stands, I've got about 30 more scripts mapped out, but a couple of people have already approached me and asked if we're going to look to do stories outside of World War II. I've had to think about it. If anybody did come forward from a writing or art point of view, what I might look to do is audition them with stories outside of World War II first, and if it works, then maybe submit the end result alongside what I'm doing. But that is only a proposition at the moment. It's not set in stone. We'll see how we do. Anyway, as always, thank you each and all for watching. You've been massively helpful so far. I hope you like what you see, and look forward to seeing you next time round.